Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's information session on why stretching and strengthening our hip flexors are so important. My name is Macy Lee, and I'm the manager of science and programs for Curves. I love when these sessions are interactive, and I'll be asking you questions throughout today's presentation. You can either unmute or type your answers into the chat. Also, if you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to put those in the chat as well, and I'll answer them as soon as I can. There are certain body parts that we think about a lot, like our hands, our feet, even our knees. And there's other body parts that kind of fly under the radar, but are equally important. And a great example of this is our hip flexors. You may actually never think about them until they flare up, but hip flexors are one of the most overlooked and neglected parts of the body. But any woman who has taken part in a full body workout needs to be aware of their hip flexors and know how to take care of them with stretches and strengthening moves. It's important that we keep them healthy to maintain posture, stability, and ensure our ability to sit and stand and take steps with effortless. So, what are the hip flexor muscles? Well, the hip flexors are a group of 5 muscles that work to flex the hip, hence the name hip flexor. Their primary hip flexor muscles are called the iliopsoas. The hip flexors do serve several roles within the body, and that includes the following. They stabilize the core when lifting, pushing, or pulling. They draw the knees towards the chest. They help maintain good posture and core stability. They reverse the negative effects of sitting, which a lot of us do too much of, and they can improve athletic performance. When your hip flexors are weak, you may have trouble doing any one of these things I just mentioned. You'll also be more likely to sustain an injury during your full body workout. Symptoms of weak hip flexors do include discomfort with standing, sitting, or walking, tightness in the front of the hip or even the lower back, irregular stride length when walking, one leg can go further than the other, reduced range of motion in the hips, and here's one, tight hamstrings. Who knew? To strengthen your hip flexors and prevent injury, I want to review some hip flexor stretching and strengthening exercises that you can perform at home with My Curves on Demand or at your local Curves club. So the first one is a great stretch. This is a seated butterfly. You want to make sure that you're sitting up nice and tall with your shoulders stacked over your hips. You can put the balls of your feet together, heels together, and just gently press your knees down to the floor. You want to inhale and lengthen through your spine as you do this, and exhale and let those muscles sink a little bit deeper into the stretch. And you want to hold this for up to about 30 seconds. The next great stretch that's for hip flexors is a lunge with spinal twist. So you want to start in a lunge position with your right leg forward. You want to lift your arms up to about chest height and then rotate your body towards that front knee and hold for about 30 seconds before we repeat on the other side. You're really going to feel this on that left leg, the leg that's behind you, and it's nice and straight in that hip flexor. Our last great stretch is a half kneeling hip flexor stretch as well. And there's actually 2 versions of this. You can do an alternate is to remain in a full stand, but if you can, step 1 foot back into a lunge and lower that back shin all the way to the floor. And then gently press your hips forward, again, stretching that hip flexor of the back leg. You want to make sure that your front knee stays in alignment with your toes. And if kneeling, getting that back leg all the way to the floor is not an option, that's okay. We can do this standing. We just won't get as deep of a stretch. And then again, after about 30 seconds, repeat this on the other side. Now that we've stretched out the hip flexors, we want to think about strengthening them. It's important that you stretch them before you do some strengthening moves, but you always want to do a light warm up first. So with this first one, again, it's a lunge. You want to start with your feet in a standing position, feet hip distance apart. Step your right foot about 2 to 3 feet ahead of you. With your feet remaining hip distance apart. And then you just want to keep your core engaged and gently press your hip forward. Breathe in, relax that back leg so it can get a little bit of a stretch, and then repeat on the other side. Another great movement for hip flexors is actually an exercise called the clam shell. So you're going to begin by sitting on the floor or on a solid surface. You want to kind of bring your body, shift your weight to one hip and bend your knees to the side at a 45-degree angle. Keep your hips stacked. And so you want to make sure that you've got a hand or an elbow pressed into the ground to help give you stability. And then you're just going to lift that upper leg up and off your bottom leg, but keeping the feet together so that it's really stretching that hip flexor. And for extra resistance, you can always do this with the Curves looped resistance band. This is a great exercise. And again, we want to repeat it on both sides. We understand how hectic life can be, and making time for your health and fitness by getting fit in a regular gym can be tough. But with Curve Circuit, it's only 30 minutes is all you need. And there's a Curves coach to help you stretch and strengthen exercises that will support you to live a fuller, healthier life. What a better way to stay mobile and fit than connecting with a community of women at Curves who share the same goals. So I encourage you to go check out your local Curves today. And if you don't have a Curves near you, go to curves.com. Now, I hope you will all join us next week when we discuss whether or not we are drinking our calories.